Imagine being just a child, and the people who gave you life decide you're not worth keeping. Thrown out like nothing, left on a sidewalk with nothing but a broken toy. But what if that moment of betrayal became the spark of a story the whole world would one day remember? This isn't just about a boy who was abandoned. It's about the woman who refused to let him go, and how together they rewrote destiny. Daniel sat hunched over the table, a pencil slipping from his fingers. The numbers blurred, the letters never stayed in place. No matter how hard he tried, nothing made sense. Across the room, his parents exchanged silent looks. Wealthy, polished, and cold. His father stacked another report with a sigh. His mother smoothed the napkin on her lap until it was perfectly flat. Perfection mattered to them. Their son's struggle was an embarrassment. After months of tutors and tests, the verdict came without a single raised voice. A small bag appeared at the door. A sweater, some socks, and a broken toy airplane tossed on top. Daniel stood frozen at the threshold, staring into the night. For the first time, he was not their child, he was their failure. Behind him, Miss Ruth, the old nanny, trembled. And then she chose. She set aside her apron and followed him out. The door clicked shut behind them, and Daniel's life changed forever. Sometimes, home isn't where you're born. It's where someone refuses to let you go. The taxi stopped outside a crumbling brick building. No marble floors, no polished gates, only flickering lights and peeling paint. Ruth guided Daniel upstairs into her small apartment. The air smelled of fried onions and damp carpet, but it was safe. Inside, there was one bed. Ruth pulled the blanket smooth and placed him there. "This is yours now," she whispered. She took the couch for herself without hesitation. The next morning, Daniel noticed the wall above his bed. His drawings were taped there. Crooked letters, uneven shapes, all the ones his parents had thrown away. Ruth pointed to them with a smile. "It's not supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be yours." Days blurred. Ruth worked double shifts, returning home with tired eyes, yet still sitting beside him at night, teaching, guiding, refusing to let him fall behind. But in the stairwell, neighbors whispered, "That's the boy they threw out. He'll never make it." And Daniel heard every word. Failure can break you, or it can light a fire. School was still a storm. Letters twisted, numbers slipped away. Every test marked him as less. Daniel wanted to give up, but Ruth refused. Quietly, she sold her last treasure, her old wedding band, and bought him a battered laptop. The screen flickered. A key was missing. The fan wheezed. To Daniel, it was everything. At first, the machine mocked him. Lines of code crashed. Programs froze. His frustration boiled until he slammed the lid shut. Ruth slid a plate beside him. "Eat, then try again. Nothing worth keeping comes easy." Night after night, he did. Slowly, patterns emerged. Slowly, chaos became order. His first apps were clumsy rent trackers, budget sheets. But neighbors used them, and then strangers online. For the first time, his work mattered. The boy once called dumb now looked like he might be something extraordinary. Success doesn't arrive overnight. It crawls, it bruises, it bleeds. The years passed quietly, one sacrifice at a time. Daniel grew taller, his gaze sharper, his nights longer. Ruth was always there, skipping meals so he could eat, giving him warmth while she shivered on the couch. She was more than his guardian. She was his anchor. The laptop rattled on, keys sticking, screen dimming, but Daniel kept coding. His projects improved. Small apps turned into tools people needed. First neighbors downloaded them, then strangers online. What began as a trickle soon became a steady stream. Then came the moment he'd never imagined. An investor wanted to hear him pitch. His palms sweated, his voice cracked, but Ruth sat beside him, hands folded, whispering a prayer. The man on the other end smiled. He believed. A small check arrived, then another. The boy, once unwanted, now had the world's attention knocking at his door. The world may forget where you came from, but it never forgets what you build. By his 20s, Daniel was no longer the boy neighbors pitted. He was a man, sharp, confident, and determined. His company launched with a logo glowing across screens. Headlines praised him as a prodigy. Cameras flashed, investors applauded, and his name began to echo in boardrooms. But Daniel knew the truth. Every success was stitched from Ruth's sacrifices. She was there at every launch, sitting quietly in the front row, gray scarf pulled tight, pride shining in her eyes though no camera lingered on her. And as the world cheered, Daniel repeated the words carved into his heart. I wasn't raised by the ones who birthed me. I was built by the one who stayed. But the ghosts of the past were already on their way back. Some wounds don't heal. They walk back into the room. The hall was packed. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward. Investors waited for every word. Daniel stood beneath the bright lights, presenting the company he had built from nothing. And then they appeared. His parents, older now but walking with the same polished confidence. They smiled as if they belonged there, as if they had always believed in him. His mother's voice slipped into the microphone, smooth as glass. We pushed you away to make you stronger. We knew you had greatness all along. The crowd clapped politely, but the whispers were louder. Didn't they throw him out? Now they're claiming it was all part of a plan. Daniel stood frozen. His chest tightened, his jaw clenched. Inside him battled two versions of himself, the abandoned boy and the man the world now admired. Would he accept their lie or reveal the truth? Sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. The hall froze. Cameras clicked like rapid gunfire. Daniel's parents stood close, their smiles fixed, waiting for him to nod, to agree, to rewrite history with them as heroes. From the wings, Ruth's hands tightened around her shawl. She had always known this moment would come. But the weight of it, the danger of it, pressed heavy on her chest. Daniel said nothing. He simply stood there, hands clasped loosely, gaze steady. The silence stretched, long enough to become unbearable, long enough for the applause to falter. Whispers filled the air. Why isn't he answering? What is he waiting for? The tension was so sharp it could cut glass. Everyone leaned forward, breathless. And then, Daniel finally lifted the mic. Blood may abandon you, but love never does. Daniel raised the microphone, his voice calm but unshakable. My parents didn't make me strong. They broke me. They left me on a sidewalk when I was just a boy. The hall gasped. Cameras flashed. The polished smiles of his parents faltered. Daniel turned toward the wings. His hand reached out, steady, certain. From the shadows, Ruth stepped forward. Shawl wrapped, posture humble. But her presence lit the room brighter than the stage lights. He lifted her hand for all to see. This is my real mother. Every success I have, every invention, every headline, it belongs to her. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the crowd erupted, cheers, applause, people rising to their feet. The hall thundered for Ruth, while his parents stood frozen in the glare of truth and shame. Sometimes the story you hide becomes the story the world remembers. Within hours, the moment was everywhere. News outlets replayed the clip on loop. Social media lit up, headlines shifting from young tech genius to boy abandoned, saved by his nanny. Investors admired not just his innovation, but his courage. Journalists wrote about Ruth as if she were the true heart of the empire. Ordinary people, strangers around the world, echoed his words. Family isn't blood. Family is who stays. Meanwhile, his parents' reputation crumbled. Their silence in that hall was louder than any denial. No statement could erase what millions had now seen. For Daniel, the story was no longer just his. It had become a mirror for every child cast aside, every person who had once been told they weren't enough. Daniel's story no longer belonged to him alone. It belonged to everyone who had ever been left behind. Heroes don't always wear crowns. Sometimes they wear tired shoes. Daniel stood on the stage not as the abandoned boy, not even as the celebrated founder, but as a man defined by loyalty. Beside him, Ruth's hand rested in his, her tired shoes carrying the weight of every sacrifice that had built him. For Daniel, the journey was no longer about proving his worth. It was about honoring the one who had given him worth. With his success, he funded scholarships, built programs, and created opportunities for children dismissed as hopeless, just as he once was. His final words rang clear: "Family isn't who shares your name. Family is who never lets you fall." The crowd roared. Ruth smiled through tears as Daniel raised her hand high, because sometimes the ones the world overlooks are the very ones who change it forever.